Whether you're pushing through mud, navigating tight turns, or powering up a steep climb, the motor on your e-bike is the real hero behind the scenes. Now, if you're here, you probably want to know what kind of hero the Bosch Performance Line CX motors, both Gen 4 and Gen 5, truly are. For those who are new to Bosch, it's worth mentioning that Bosch has been a major player in the e-bike world for years, known for creating some of the most reliable and high-performing motors out there. The Performance Line CX lineup, in particular, is Bosch's powerhouse series, built for tackling tough terrain and giving riders that extra push when they need it the most. The Gen 4 was already a powerhouse, and the Gen 5 is the updated one. But the big question remains, do these two motors perform differently? Is the newer model actually better? We're about to dive into the story of these two motors and see what makes them tick, and more importantly, what that means for you as a rider. Let's get into it. Before we get into the details, it's important to note that both the Bosch Performance Line CX Gen 4 and Gen 5 motors share the same core power. We're talking 85 Newton meters of torque. And for those who might not know what that number really means, it's what gives you that push when you're climbing a steep hill or charging over rough terrain. Both motors have 600 watts of peak power and can give you up to 340% of assistance. Now, if you're halfway up a steep climb, your legs are burning. But then the motor kicks in, and it's like you've got a little boost that turns what could have been a painful struggle into a smooth ride. Both the Gen 4 and Gen 5 deliver on that front. You won't feel underpowered with either of them. Here's where the story starts to shift. The Gen 5 motor is slightly lighter than the Gen 4. We're talking about 100 grams. Not a huge difference on paper, right? But think about how a small change can make a big difference when you're riding. If you've ever ridden a bike that's just a bit too heavy, you'll know how every extra gram can add up over time. That weight can make a difference, especially when you're trying to maneuver quickly or take tight turns. With the Gen 5, the lighter magnesium housing helps shave off just enough weight to make it feel a bit more agile under your feet. This weight difference might not make or break a decision for everyone, but for riders who are used to pushing their bikes to the limit, maybe you're hopping on and off trails, tackling sharp climbs, or handling those last-minute directional changes, a little less weight can make everything feel just a bit smoother. It's like the difference between a bulky backpack and a streamlined one. The lighter option just feels more freeing. Now, this is where things get interesting. Let's talk about noise. If you've ever ridden a bike with a Gen 4 motor, you might have noticed a certain clacking noise, especially when you're coasting downhill. It's not super loud, but it's there. That little rattle that reminds you the motor is doing its thing. Now, this might not bother everyone, but if you're the type of rider who loves the peace and quiet of the outdoors, the wind rushing past you, the tires crunching on gravel, the birds chirping, that sound can take away from the experience a bit. Enter the Gen 5. With a redesigned gearbox, Bosch managed to eliminate that clacking noise. So, imagine this. You're flying down a hill, feeling the rush of the descent, and it's just silent. You can hear everything around you, and the motor quietly hums in the background, doing its job without any extra fuss. That might not seem like a big deal until you experience it. That silence is like a breath of fresh air. It's you in the ride, nothing else. If you're not new to e-bikes, you already know that how the motor responds to your pedaling can make or break the experience. You don't want to feel like the motor is lagging behind you, trying to catch up. You also don't want it to feel too eager, pushing more power than you need. This is where the Gen 5's improved sensors come into play. In roads, the difference is subtle, but you can feel it. The Gen 5 has enhanced sensors that measure cadence, speed, and terrain in a more precise way. So when you're pedaling, especially on tricky terrain, or while transitioning from a flat road to a steep climb, the motor knows exactly when and how much power to deliver. It's like having a riding partner who knows your every move, reacting naturally and effortlessly. Let's talk about the little details that Bosch added to the Gen 5. Things that you won't necessarily find on the spec sheet, but make a big difference in your ride. First up, the Hill Start Assist. If you've ever had to stop on a hill and then try to get moving again, you'll know it's no easy feat. Your bike feels heavier, gravity is working against you, and sometimes you're just stuck. The Gen 5 has a hill start assist feature that gives you an extra boost right when you need it. It's not flashy, but it's practical, and it can save you a lot of frustration when you're out on a challenging ride. Another new feature, the updated walk assist. Now, this might sound like a small thing, but it's actually super helpful if you're ever pushing your bike up a steep incline or through rough terrain. Instead of struggling to move it forward, the motor provides just enough power to make it feel like you're walking a regular bike. Again, it's one of those features that you don't realize you need until you've used it, and then you wonder how you ever got by without it. Now, no motor is perfect. And while the Gen 5 certainly has its improvements, there are still areas where it could be better. For starters, both the Gen 4 and Gen 5 motors are capped at the same legal power rating of 250 watts. While that's the standard for e-bikes, some riders might find themselves wanting just a little more, especially when tackling long climbs or carrying extra weight. The power is sufficient for most, but those pushing their bikes to the limits might find this a little restrictive. Another point is the overall complexity of the system. Both the Gen 4 and Gen 5 motors are highly advanced, with sensors and electronics working together to deliver a smooth ride. But with that complexity comes the potential for more things to go wrong. While Bosch is known for its reliability, the more advanced a system is, the more you need to stay on top of maintenance. And for some riders, that could be a downside. So, how do these motors stack up in the real world? Well, if you're using the Gen 4, you're already enjoying a powerful, reliable motor that can handle pretty much anything you throw at it. But if you're upgrading to the Gen 5, you're going to notice a few things. The ride feels quieter, more responsive, and a bit more refined overall. The lighter weight, quieter gearbox, and improved sensors all work together to create an experience that feels just a bit more polished. Think of it like this. The Gen 4 is the tried and true workhorse. It gets the job done, no fuss. But the Gen 5 is like the next generation. It's sleeker, smoother, and just feels a little more in tune with what you need as a rider. At the end of the day, both the Bosch Performance line, CX Gen 4, and Gen 5 motors are fantastic choices for e-bike riders. The Gen 4 has proven itself as a reliable powerhouse, while the Gen 5 brings in some meaningful upgrades that enhance the overall riding experience. If you're already using the Gen 4 and it's meeting your needs, there's no rush to upgrade. But if you're in the market for a new motor or new e-bike, the Gen 5's improvements in weight, noise reduction, and responsiveness make it a strong contender. This isn't about one being definitely better than the other. It's about understanding the nuances and figuring out what matters most to you as a rider. Whether it's the silence of the ride, the lighter weight, or the smoother integration, the Gen 5 offers something that feels like the future of e-biking. So, which one would you choose for your next ride? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more e-bike comparisons.